The company retreat was supposed to end with a fireworks display, but my fiancé's pet assistant, Chad, decided to provide his own. Beneath the exploding colors, he dropped to one knee. He held out a diamond ring. "Willow," he announced to everyone around, "marry me." He was proposing to my fiancé, right in front of me. My coworkers glanced at me briefly, a flicker of pity in their eyes, before turning back to the spectacle, as if I didn't exist. "Say yes. Say yes," they cheered. I walked closer, keeping my gaze on Willow. Chad shot me a triumphant, venomous smirk. "Not married yet," he sneered. "Trash like you doesn't deserve her." I stayed calm. "He's right, we're not married. That means you still have a choice. Me or him." "Why would she choose you?" Chad scoffed. "Because you dropped out of high school? Or because you're just a glorified bodyguard?" A wave of laughter rippled through the crowd. "Look at him," one colleague jeered. "If it weren't for Ms. Donovan, he wouldn't even have a job." "Exactly," another said, eager to impress Chad. "He gets a pity post as head of security and now thinks he can compete for her?" I said nothing, waiting for Willow's response. Our engagement had never been about passion. It was a promise I made to her grandfather. 3 years to see if feelings could grow. But in all that time, I hadn't broken through the walls around her heart. Willow didn't need words. She extended her hand to Chad. He slid the ring onto her finger and pulled her into a lingering kiss, as if the world had paused for them. I watched in quiet detachment. 3 years of tests, provocations, and emotional games had left me numb. When they finally parted, Chad sneered. "Still here? Leave, unless you're waiting for a wedding invite." I stepped forward, unclasping my watch and offering it to Willow. "This was your engagement gift to me. I'd like it back." 3 years ago, at her grandfather's insistence, we had exchanged watches, a symbol of loyalty and the time we were supposed to share. "Ugh, I don't want anything you've touched," Chad snapped, slapping my hand aside. "Handle it yourself." Then he turned to Willow. "And as for the watch you wore, you have no claim." Willow understood immediately. She reached into her purse, retrieved the watch I'd given her, and handed it to Chad. She had only worn it for visits to her grandfather. Otherwise, it stayed tucked away. With theatrical flair, Chad flung my watch into the lake. "You want this back? You'll be a clown your whole life." My gaze sharpened. "You'd better retrieve it immediately. And pray it isn't damaged, because if it is, you couldn't pay me back even if you sold your soul." Chad sneered. "A cheap knockoff, and you're acting like a billionaire who bought the real thing? Want to know why Willow never liked you? Because you gave her a fake. A tacky, worthless fake." He played to the crowd. And not just any knockoff. This was the timeless vow, the one-of-a-kind that sold for $25 million. Do you know how much everyone laughed at her? "None of you know what you're talking about," I said evenly. "That watch? I bought the original for $25 million. Now get it out of the lake." The crowd erupted in disbelief. Willow finally spoke, her tone dripping with superiority. "Mason, I know you had feelings, but you can't force love. Arranged marriages are outdated. I was never interested in you. Someone as ordinary as you could never have been the right man for me. Please, just leave." I held my ground. "Let me clarify. It was your grandfather who asked me to get engaged. I genuinely tried to make something work, but you ignored every effort. A relationship is a two-way street. I don't love you." I honored a promise to an old man. Her eyes narrowed. "Your effort? You mean fawning over my grandfather, helping him in the garden, playing chess, all to emotionally manipulate me into this charade? Fine, you tried. You never loved me. Happy. If it weren't for the watch, I'd have walked away already." "This isn't about feelings anymore," I said, turning to Chad. "You threw my property into a lake. I will have it appraised, and you will compensate me for any damage." Chad's expression darkened. "You wear $50 clothes and want money from me? Show me proof of that $25 million watch, and I'll pay you $50 million. No proof, and you'll drink this." He picked up a half-filled champagne cup, spat in it, and offered it to the crowd. "Deal," I said, pulling out my phone. Willow and Chad didn't matter now. The watch did. It had a purpose, and I would reclaim it. Chad swaggered closer. "So, when are your people getting here?" "An hour, tops," I replied. "I'll give you 2 hours," Chad declared with mock generosity. "If your proof isn't here by then, you drink the cup. Deal?" "Deal," I said without hesitation. "And if the receipts check out, you'll cover the full damages." He smirked. "If you really have receipts, I'll pay 10 times over." For the next while, Chad, Willow, and their entourage played party games, intentionally leaving me out. Chad even made a dramatic proclamation. If the 2 hours passed without proof, not only would I drink the cup, I'd be fired on the spot. Then, a low thrum filled the air. I glanced at my watch. Only 40 minutes had passed since I made the call. A helicopter cut across the night sky, approaching rapidly. Everyone noticed, eyes widening. The craft landed with a deafening roar in a nearby clearing, drawing all attention. "Now that's real money," a colleague whispered, awestruck. Arriving by helicopter. As the door opened and a man stepped out, Chad's eyes sparkled. "Willow, look. Chairman Sterling of the Eternity Group. This is a golden opportunity." Willow adjusted her dress, radiating confidence. "Watch closely. Once I introduce myself, even someone like him will be impressed. He'll be a valuable ally." The Eternity Group was legendary in luxury watchmaking, a centennial powerhouse. The watch now resting at the bottom of the lake was one of their bespoke masterpieces. Willow's company, Elysian Beauty, had skyrocketed in just 3 years, growing from a startup to a publicly traded powerhouse. What she didn't realize was that much of that success stemmed from my quiet, strategic support. Next to the Eternity Group, her company was still a small player. Eager to impress Sterling, Willow and Chad approached him. Willow's posture was perfect, her every movement exuding the confidence of someone who had never faced defeat. In her mind, powerful figures were merely tools to charm, and Sterling would be no exception. "Mr. Sterling, what an honor," Willow said, extending a flawless hand. "I'm Willow Donovan, CEO of Elysian Beauty." Sterling shook her hand with genuine respect. "Miss Donovan, the pleasure is mine. I've heard much about you. A long illness kept me away from business, but meeting you here, it feels like fate." The onlookers gawked. Even they knew Willow's reputation, but seeing Sterling treat her with such reverence was astonishing. Willow smiled wider and introduced Chad. "Mr. Sterling, this is my fiancé, Chad Foster." At the word fiancé, Sterling's expression changed. When Chad extended his hand, the chairman's warmth vanished. His gaze flicked to me, confusion etched on his face. Yes, you've heard about Mason," Chad said smoothly, misreading Sterling's look. "That's in the past now." Then, he jabbed further. "Speaking of the past, Mr. Sterling, your company's masterpiece, the Timeless Vow, sold for $25 million, right?"
He pointed at me.
"This guy, Mason, bought a cheap replica for Willow. I threw it in the lake a few minutes ago, and now he wants $25 million for it." Chad smirked at Sterling. "He even pretended to call your company, asking for proof of purchase. So, Mr. Sterling, was it Mason Hill who bought the original?" His eyes locked on me, expectant. Sterling's arrival was the ultimate windfall for Chad. What could be better than the head of the Eternity Group publicly exposing me? The other employees watched eagerly, anticipating a train wreck. Willow looked at me with pure disgust. Sterling scratched his head, an odd gesture for someone of his status. He glanced at me. "Mr. Hill," he said slowly, "I must admit, I'm not sure what's happening." "Betrayal," I replied flatly. In an instant, Sterling's demeanor shifted. Confusion vanished, replaced by icy clarity. His face hardened into an unreadable mask. "Water," he commanded. An assistant hurried over with a bottle of mineral water. Sterling poured it over his hands, scrubbing furiously, as if cleansing a stain. "My God, Mason, you've put me in a terrible spot," he muttered, loud enough for all to hear. "Had it not been for you, I would never have shaken hands with that woman. Filth, it's just filthy." The crowd went silent, completely baffled. Willow's face darkened. "Mr. Sterling, were you insulting me?" she demanded. "Of course," he snapped. "Who else? You worthless creature. I only shook your hand because of Mr. Hill. Now that you're no longer with him, just looking at you offends me." A small smile touched my lips. "All right, Sterling, no need to go overboard. My watch is in the lake. Did you bring the recovery team?" "I couldn't trust anyone else with this task," Sterling said earnestly. "I'm handling it personally." With that, the 60-year-old chairman rolled up his sleeves and waded into the icy water. No words were needed. His actions spoke volumes. I turned to Chad, who was pale as a ghost. Willow rushed to his side. "It can't be that valuable. Even if it is, I've got you covered. $25 million. "Bold claim," I said coolly. "Willow, do you personally own that much? Or are you planning to siphon it from the company?"
She glared.
"Mason, Elysian Beauty is a Donovan company. What I do with funds is my business, not yours. What if I told you it isn't? Chad scoffed, regaining some bravado. We weren't married. Your finances aren't shared. You have no claim. I looked at Willow. You may be CEO, but you don't control Elysian Beauty. Moving a sum that large requires board approval. Don't worry, she shot back. I'll convince the board that Chad's talent is an asset. Once his project launches, it will elevate the company even further. You mean project longevity? I asked, turning to Chad. The board already deemed it unfeasible. Chad straightened. It was escalated to the mysterious chairman of the board. He approves most projects in a day. The only delay shows he's giving it full consideration. Found it. Sterling's shout cut Chad off. With help from his team, he emerged from the lake, holding the watch dripping but intact. He handed it to an expert for immediate assessment. Moments later, one of Sterling's aides returned with a report. He turned to me. Mr. Hill, the watch is waterproof, but the impact and current drove it against a rock. The casing has deep scratches. Repairs will cost at least $5 million. I nodded and fixed my gaze on Chad. $5 million, no more. Willow's voice rang out. That's nothing. I'll cover it. She turned to her CFO. Transfer the funds immediately. I raised a hand. As I said before, company money isn't yours to touch. If you want to pay with personal funds, fine. But no corporate money moves for this. Chad bristled. Who do you think you are? Willow runs Elysian Beauty. She can authorize anything. I looked between them. Did it ever occur to you that your project has been stalled for 2 weeks because I am the mysterious chairman of the board, deliberately holding it back? Chad laughed in disbelief. You're delusional. Next, you'll claim you're the richest man alive. I actually am, I said calmly. Mason enough. Willow snapped. Knowing Sterling doesn't give you authority. I control Elysian Beauty. $5 million is within my discretionary power. She stared down the CFO. Make the transfer. The CFO hesitated. Ms. Donovan, that's a major sum. Approval or direct authorization from the chairman is required. Willow's glare froze her. You have the chairman's number. Call him. Reluctantly, the CFO dialed. My phone rang at the same moment. I answered casually. No need to call. I was about to handle it myself. The CFO paled, realizing she had been among those laughing at me earlier. Chad grabbed the phone. Mr. Chairman, hello, this is... You're a fool. I interrupted, my voice echoing both through the phone and across the clearing. Chad froze. Horror spread across his face. Willow snatched the phone. Mr. Chairman? This is Willow Donovan. Hello, Willow, I said, repeating the first words I had ever spoken to her 3 years ago. This is Mason Hill. Your grandfather suggested we get to know each other. Her face crumpled. She could never have imagined that I was the anonymous benefactor who had quietly built her family's company, funding, guidance, formulas, and strategy, all while she believed she had done it herself. Chad stammered. It was just a test. A performance. Willow was upset you kept it secret. This was all supposed to lead to honesty. Willow nodded eagerly. I knew it was you, Mason. Why hide it? I was hurt. I arched an eyebrow. A performance, you say? Was the kiss part of that act, too? Chad blurted, desperate. Forced perspective. A camera trick. I pressed further. Then explain the villa at Crystal Mountain. Their faces drained. That villa was a secret getaway Willow had purchased for Chad's escapades. Now that the truth is out, I continued. Willow, you will not use company funds for personal matters and must repay every cent misused. You have 1 month. I turned to the CFO. And you, any funds misdirected to Willow or kickbacks you've taken will be scrutinized. Lawyers are on their way. She collapsed in panic. Finally, I addressed Chad. The $5 million for the watch, 7 days. He looked at Willow pleadingly, but she was already sinking under the weight of her own mismanagement. Years of personal spending on him from company funds had left a gaping hole. Willow, my dear girl, what is this madness? Her grandfather arrived, alarm etched across his face. Crack. The first thing Mr. Donovan did was slap his granddaughter. Ungrateful fool, he roared. 3 years ago, by chance, I saved Mason's life. He offered me immense wealth. I refused. All I asked was a chance for you to marry him. He agreed, under one condition, a 3-year trial. He would live as a common man to see if you were worthy. Did you pass? Tears streamed down his face. For 3 years, I dropped hints. I invited him every week. but you were always too busy. You think he didn't notice your absences meant chasing this parasite? He came faithfully, rain or shine, out of respect for me. He gave you countless chances, and you squandered every one. A fortune fell into your lap, and you let it slip away. The truth hit Willow. She had thought my weekly visits were for flattery. In reality, I had been honoring a promise to her grandfather. "Mr. Donovan," I said gently, "our 3-year agreement ended yesterday. I am free as of today." The old man sank to his knees. "I can no longer ask you to marry her. But for the sake of what you did for me, please spare her. Give her a chance at life." I helped him up. "Sir, I never intended to ruin her, but I cannot marry her. Willow has no business acumen. I will acquire her shares in Elysian Beauty. The funds will go into your name. What you do with them is your concern." He gripped my hand. "Thank you, Mr. Hill. Truly. The payout would ensure his family's comfort for generations." To me, it was a mere fraction of what I owed him. Years ago, I had been betrayed and left for dead. He saved me, a debt money could never repay. "Willow, apologize to Mr. Hill," he commanded. "No need," I said coolly. "Betrayal deserves no forgiveness." He understood. Legally, she was safe, but the lesson was clear. He bowed to me, then gave Willow a disappointed glare. "Come home. Help me," Chad cried as she left. She paused, looking at me. I shrugged. "Our relationship is over. The choice is yours. I won't interfere." Her eyes blazed with a desperate, newfound clarity. "It was always you I wanted. Mason, a man like you, that is my destiny. I choose you. I swear I will never speak to Chad again. If he contacts me, I'll call the police." I didn't respond. I turned and walked away. Chairman Sterling would oversee Chad's debt collection. Days later, Sterling confirmed Chad had been arrested. Penniless, he had attempted to contact Willow, only to be rebuffed. In desperation, he broke into her home with a knife, demanding money. But Willow fought back ferociously. She was wounded in the struggle, but so was Chad. Panicked, he fled, only to be apprehended shortly after. Their love had turned to hatred the moment my identity was revealed. About a month later, I was enjoying afternoon tea on the observation deck of Bayview Tower. The fully restored, timeless vow lay on the table in front of me, awaiting its rightful owner. Soon, a familiar figure appeared, Vivian Croy, a woman of formidable presence, from a family as powerful as mine, my childhood companion, and my betrothed. Our families had arranged our union long ago, but our stubbornness had convinced us that our bond was merely sibling-like. We resisted, rebelling against the match, sparking bitter conflicts with our elders. That fight had driven us apart. The 3-year pact wasn't just with Mr. Donovan, it included Vivian too. She had been the one to instruct me to give her watch to Willow, stipulating that if I ever truly fell for Willow, she would attend our wedding and bless the union. Meanwhile, she promised to search for her own true love. It turned out I never fell for Willow, and neither did Vivian find anyone else. Time and distance had clarified the truth. We were each other's most important person. As she approached, a smile spread across my face. She noticed, and a faint blush touched her cheeks, more eloquent than words ever could be. She seated herself, fastened the watch to her wrist as though it had always belonged there, and said softly, "I knew it would come back to me." I recalled a moment I had never shared. The instant I handed that watch to Willow, regret had flooded me. I had known then who my heart truly belonged to, but uncertainty had kept me silent. 3 years of quiet yearning had passed. Today, that wish was finally fulfilled. Vivian waved a hand in front of my face. "Want the latest on Willow?" "I'd rather not," I admitted, "but gossip has a way of finding me." I had bought out the Donovan family's shares in Elysian for $50 billion, far more than their actual value. This alone would secure their descendants' prosperity indefinitely. But Willow had plans. She vowed to build her own empire, determined to prove she didn't need me to become a legend. She took the $50 billion and founded Eternalife, a company promising groundbreaking advancements in longevity. A bold, enticing claim. From what I heard, she despised Chad for costing her a life of unimaginable wealth, yet she still trusted his business acumen. Her company's philosophy revolved entirely around the delusional and unfeasible project he had pitched. In her hands, $50 billion would not last long. "You're not going to warn her?" Vivian asked. "Adults must be accountable for their own choices," I replied. "Business requires patience. Profit rarely comes immediately." One must cultivate reputation, refine the product, and weather setbacks. Willow, accustomed to instant success, had forgotten that all her past triumphs had been orchestrated by me. Once I stepped back, the partners and collaborators vanished, leaving only opportunists circling her fortune. 6 months later, her empire teetered on the brink. That day, I was scheduled to confront her again. Willow sat in her lavish office atop the Eternalife Tower, the city sprawling below. Once, she had loved gazing out those windows, dreaming of dominion. Now, the view only reminded her of the cage she had built for herself. Scattered on her desk were her product samples, and a government agency was on its way with the industry's top expert to investigate reports of harm. Panic gnawed at her. She had purchased her formula from a dubious source, assured that only a legendary physician could detect its flaws. Now, people were already falling ill. The office door swung open. Willow straightened, preparing to face regulators, but froze at the sight of their expert. "Ms. Donovan," the lead agent said, "allow me to introduce our consultant. Mason Hill, one of the nation's foremost authorities in integrative medicine. When my family cut ties with me, I had relied entirely on my own skills. The empire I built for the Donovans was born from expertise, not luck." I examined her product. Cleverly designed, it stimulated cellular activity to produce a temporary sensation of vigor. But the effect came at a terrible cost: accelerated cellular aging. What appeared rejuvenating was actually life-shortening, a biological candle burning at both ends. I presented my findings. Willow's eyes widened in disbelief. "You're sabotaging me. My formula is perfect. You want to ruin me." Her voice trembled. "I already apologized. What more do you want?" "You're not worth the effort," I said, detached. Authorities took her into custody. Under scrutiny, her claims collapsed. She admitted knowing the formula's danger, yet distributing it for profit. Human lives had been risked for greed. For me, the betrayal only underscored one truth: Vivian was my heart's rightful owner. The following morning, under a brilliant sunrise, Vivian and I went to City Hall. Our wedding would be a private affair, just the two of us, signing our license, followed by a world-spanning honeymoon. We had been apart long enough. Finally, we would enjoy our own uninterrupted world.